Imagine waking up one morning, and by nightfall, the king of your country has fled his own palace in disguise. Not in one country, not in two, but across an entire continent, almost simultaneously, millions of ordinary people, farmers, students, factory workers, poets, stood up and said, "Enough." This is not a story about one revolution. This is the story of the year the entire world order cracked open. Welcome to 1848. You are watching History Veil, and today we are diving into one of the most explosive, chaotic, and misunderstood years in all of human history. A year so dramatic that historians still call it the springtime of nations. A year when the old kings and emperors of Europe genuinely believed their time was over. Some of them were right. So buckle up, because this story moves fast, just like 1848 itself. To understand why 1848 happened. After Napoleon was defeated in 1815, the great powers of Europe, Austria, Prussia, Russia, and Britain sat down at the Congress of Vienna and tried to put the old world back together. They drew borders. They restored kings. They created a system built entirely on suppressing two forces they were absolutely terrified of: nationalism and liberalism. Nationalism, the idea that people sharing a language and culture deserve their own state. And liberalism, the idea that citizens deserve rights, constitutions, and a say in how they are governed. For 30 years, they sat on those two ideas like men trying to hold the lid on a boiling pot. And then came the cold years. The 1840s brought crop failures across Europe. In Ireland, the Great Famine was already killing millions. In France and the German states, bread prices soared so high that the urban poor simply could not eat. A new class of people was suffering in ways the old aristocratic system had no answers for: the industrial working class, crammed into filthy cities, laboring 16-hour days, watching their children grow up in squalor. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels published the Communist Manifesto in February of 1848. The timing was not a coincidence. The air smelled like gunpowder. It started in Sicily in January, when locals rose up against the Bourbon king. But the spark that truly lit the continent came from France. In Paris, the government of King Louis Philippe had banned political meetings, so opposition groups started holding what they called banquets, dinner parties, where they discussed reform over wine. When the king banned those two, Paris exploded. Street barricades went up overnight. The National Guard refused to fire on the people. By February 24, 1848, King Louis Philippe abdicated and fled to England in a cab, disguised as a plain citizen. France declared itself a republic for the second time. The news traveled across Europe like electricity. Within weeks, Vienna erupted. The Austrian Empire was the beating heart of the old conservative order, and its most powerful minister, Prince Metternich, the architect of the entire post-Napoleon European system, the man who had spent 30 years crushing liberal movements, was forced to resign and flee the city hidden in a laundry cart. A laundry cart. The most powerful statesman in Europe, smuggled out of his own capital in dirty linen. That image tells you everything about how fast the world was changing. In the German states, princes and kings who had resisted reform for decades suddenly began handing out constitutions, like they were handing out candy, hoping to calm the crowds. A Frankfurt parliament was convened, an assembly of liberal intellectuals and reformers who gathered to discuss, for the very first time, the creation of a unified German nation. It was a breathtaking idea. Germany as we know it did not exist yet. It was a patchwork of 39 separate states. Professors, lawyers, and writers sat in St. Paul's Church in Frankfurt and debated what Germany could become. It was idealistic, chaotic, and ultimately doomed, but for a brief moment, it felt like the future was being written in real time. In Hungary, a young lawyer and journalist named Lajos Kossuth stood before the Hungarian Diet and delivered a speech so powerful that it sent tremors across the empire. He demanded a constitution. He demanded that Hungary govern itself. Within days, Hungary had a new liberal government. The Hungarians went further than almost anyone else in 1848, building a functioning independent state that held off the full military might of the Austrian Empire for over a year. Their story is one of the most extraordinary of the entire revolutionary wave, a genuine national uprising that came terrifyingly close to success. Italy caught fire too. In Milan, the people rose up against their Austrian occupiers in what became known as the 5 Days of Milan, 5 days of street fighting so fierce that the Austrian general had to withdraw his entire army from the city. In Venice, the old republic was briefly declared restored. In Rome, the Pope himself was forced to flee, and a Roman republic was declared, with the revolutionary hero Giuseppe Garibaldi arriving to help defend it. The Italian peninsula, fractured and occupied for centuries, was suddenly alive with the dream of unification and independence. Even in Berlin, the Prussian capital, King Frederick William IV faced barricades and revolution. He appeared on his balcony, took off his hat to the crowd, and rode through the streets wearing the black, red, and gold colors of German nationalism. One of the most powerful monarchs in Europe, publicly humiliating himself before his own subjects to avoid being swept away. And yet, here is the part that makes 1848 so haunting almost none of it lasted. The revolutions failed. One by one, the old regimes came back. The reasons vary from place to place, but a pattern emerges. The revolutionary coalitions were fragile. Liberals wanted constitutions. Workers wanted bread and economic justice. Nationalists wanted their own states. These goals often crashed into each other. The Hungarian Revolution, for all its brilliance, refused to extend national rights to Croatians and Romanians within its own borders, and those groups then fought on the side of the Austrian Empire against Hungary. In the end, Tsar Nicholas I of Russia sent 200,000 troops to crush the Hungarian Revolution on behalf of Austria. It was over. In France, the new republic held elections, and the countryside conservative, Catholic, fearful, voted in Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of the great Napoleon, as president. Within 3 years, he had made himself Emperor Napoleon. The republic was gone. The Frankfurt Parliament collapsed when the Prussian king refused to accept the crown of a unified Germany offered to him by an elected assembly. He contemptuously called it a crown from the gutter. The Roman Republic was crushed by a French army sent by the same Louis Napoleon, trying to win favor with the Pope. Metternich eventually came back to Vienna as a respected elder statesman. The lid went back on the pot. But here is what the kings and emperors could not undo: the ideas. You cannot put ideas back in a box. 1848 proved that ordinary people in their millions were willing to die for concepts like national identity, constitutional rights, and human dignity. The revolutions failed, but they planted seeds that could not be killed. Within 20 years, Italy would be unified. Within 23 years, Germany would be unified, not by liberal professors in Frankfurt, but by iron and blood as Bismarck would put it. The map of Europe, drawn by those terrified monarchs at Vienna in 1815, was finished. 1,848 killed it. It just took a few more decades to bury it completely. And there is a deeper lesson here that echoes far beyond 1,848. Established powers can suppress a revolution. They can exile its leaders, imprison its fighters, and restore their thrones. But they cannot suppress the moment when millions of people simultaneously realize that the world does not have to be the way it has always been. That realization, once it spreads, never fully goes away. 1,848 was proof of that. The kings won the battles. The ideas won the war. That is the story of the year of revolutions, the year Europe exploded and the modern world took its first trembling steps forward. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person who belongs in the History Veil community. We do not just cover dates and battles here. We dig into the human forces beneath history, the fear, the courage, the impossible dreams. If you want more, hit subscribe because there is so much more to come. Drop a comment below and tell me which revolution from 1848 you find the most fascinating. Hungary, France, Italy, or Germany? I read every single one. Thank you for watching History Veil, and I will see you in the next one.